Good morning. I'm Judge Colliver. Welcome to our department. I'm going to show you the courtroom today. So we're going to go piece by piece through the courtroom, and we'll talk a little bit about the history of the different things you're going to see here along the way. So I am sitting here on what is called the bench. It's originally was the judges would come to town and there would be a bench that they would sit at. It would be a little bit more raised than everything else in the area, so they get a good vantage point. And they would sit there, and members of the bar, the attorneys, and at the time, anybody that was sitting in a certain spot in front of a bar was considered a member of the bar. That would be the attorneys and the clients, and even the jury was on that side of the bar. They would come to the courts, and the court was sitting on the bench, and they would hear the matters and make the rulings in the cases. So we are here in the Superior Court of Orange County. There are many different locations throughout the county with various different courts that hear all different kinds of matters. This happens to be a criminal courtroom, but there are criminal courts. There are civil courts that handle matters if somebody's injured, or if there's a dispute about business things, that's handled in the courts. That's called contracts or business disputes. There's family matters that deals with any different things that involve the family, and juveniles. There's juvenile court, trusts and wills for later in life. So there's all different aspects of the law that are handled here at the court. Now, it used to be that everything was done by paper. When I first became an attorney, you would go to the different offices downstairs and file all the documents by paper forms, and there were file rooms and many, many files and documents. Nowadays, as I guess you've probably guessed, there's a lot of different ways to handle the documents, and we primarily are digital. That means things are stored in our computers, things can be filed electronically, even things can be heard electronically. We have the courtroom set up with screens and cameras, so things can be heard remotely if necessary. We know that in recent times we've had to explore that even more, and the court was able to fulfill all those needs and do everything electronically so that we can make sure matters continue to get heard and justice can still be served, even in trying times when things are required to be electronic. That's because we have so many things that have been set up electronically. All of our documents, I can look up a case, find it on my computer, find out who the attorneys are, find out all the information about the case and all the past and future dates, and be able to look at that at my fingertips very easily on the computer. The attorneys typically come into the courtroom. They would sit in front of me at the counsel table. Counsel is another fancy word for attorney or lawyer. They would sit at the table in front of me, and the defendant sits on one side and the plaintiff sits on the other side. Those are the two parties that we have in criminal cases. Those are the same parties that we have in civil cases. So the plaintiff side would sit on one side. They're the moving party, or the party that's brought the case to the court. And the defendant would sit on the other side. They're the party that has been brought to court by that action. And they both have different roles, and they would sit at the tables in front of me, and they have electronic capability as well. They can go on their computers, they can pull things up and show them in PowerPoints and on the screen. And in many cases, like the criminal cases we have, that is done in front of a jury. And that's to my right. There's a jury box. There are 12 jurors. And in our court, there are 2 alternates in this particular courtroom. Other cases have different numbers of alternates. That's 12 jurors that are selected to sit and listen to the facts of the case and listen to the law that the judge gives. And they are asked to decide how the case comes out, the decision, the ruling, or in this case, it would be the verdict in the cases. If it is a court case, the verdict is rendered by the court, the judge, and if it's a jury case, the verdict is rendered by the 12 jurors. I have others that sit around me, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. We have the courtroom clerk. She would sit, in this case, she would sit here next to me, and she would be helping with all different aspects of the cases, whatever we may have in our courtroom at that time. This is a criminal courtroom. She would be in charge of all of the case materials that would come to the court for a trial or for a preliminary hearing, make sure that everything is in order, make sure that the attorneys have what they need, and make sure all of the notes and minutes are kept, so we have a very good record of what took place at that hearing. The bailiff, who is also here in the court, they are the first person usually that people coming into the court would see. They make sure there's order in the courtroom. They make sure that the rules are followed as far as the courtroom procedures, and if any jurors or guests to the courtroom have questions, they would field those questions and make sure that they directed them to the proper locations or answers that they might need. They are also, of course, here to keep the court safe and to keep everybody that comes into the courtroom safe as well. Sometimes we have a calendar that involves lots and lots of cases, not trials, but hearings, like an arraignment calendar. An arraignment is usually the first place that somebody would go if they have a criminal case. They would go to their arraignment. It would be their first time in court. They would be seen by a judge, and they'd have an opportunity to have an attorney appointed or to go get an attorney in their case. And they would have an opportunity to plea in their case or continue their case to a different day. And in those situations, we often have additional courtroom clerks or attendants that can help due to the nature and volume of the cases in those courtrooms. There are also sometimes interpreters needed in the courts. People come from all different communities. Our state is very diverse, and we want to make sure that anybody that comes to the court has access to justice, and that means that they need to have proper interpretation so that they can be understood and they can understand all that is going on in the court. There are also sometimes court reporters. They would sit to the right of the court, to the bench. Depending on the courtroom, they would sit in front of the bench, and they transcribe on it looks like a typewriter type device. They would transcribe all that is going on, and they actually use computers now as well, but they transcribe all that is going on in the courtroom. They write down all the language, all the descriptions that are being said in the courtroom, so that if at a later time we need a record of that could be printed out into a booklet and we can look at it. Additionally, there is something called the gavel. A gavel is it's a mallet, a wooden mallet that is used to sometimes bring session into order, sometimes to end the court session. So typically to maintain order in the courtroom, the judge would bang the gavel, and that would signify that it is time for the courtroom to become quiet so that the proceedings can go forward. Thank you very much for being here with me today and for learning about our courts. I really hope you come and visit the court yourself and see what amazing work we do here. And thank you very much, and it's been an honor to share my time with you.